And Tim, there's some great new reporting that sort of speaks to this Frankenstein that is what has emerged in place of what used to be known as the Republican Party, in which you and I worked. And I think what makes it front burner news is the danger it poses to, as Jason just said, the Democratic experiment. There's some great new reporting in the Washington Post from Michael Kranish, who profiles Josh Hawley. And this is from that piece. Quote, "I feel very responsible for Josh Hawley being in the Senate. I feel terrible about it," said former Senator John Danforth, who recently called his encouragement of Hawley's Senate run the greatest mistake of my life. He added Josh Hawley played a central role in creating, if not the darkest day in American history, one of the darkest days in American history. What do you make of Republicans who you and I both know, who sat on the sidelines, who watched the corruption, if you will, of the Republican Party, who watched the ascent of the Ted Cruzes and the Lindsey Grahams, the one-time wingmen of people like John McCain, who traveled the world to prop up fragile democracies, now participating in the damaging of ours?
I don't have the vocabulary for this, Nicolle, and it's just so disheartening in the extreme to have to live through it and to have to watch it. And especially after January 6th, I mean, man, you remember, we were all here, but leading up to the election, I was mad that more Republicans weren't speaking out. I was mad that it fell to people like Olivia Troy and Elizabeth Newman coming out of the Trump administration, that there were no bigger names that were out there and making this fight. Some of the people we had worked for that sat on the sidelines. But then, after they stormed the Capitol, still now to have people sitting on the sidelines, still to have a permanent insurrection party, because that's what this is. If you look at what's happening with Liz Cheney, the only debate here is on whether the insurrection was a good thing, that they should continue to lie about, that they should continue to talk about how the election needed to be overturned, or whether it was something we need to move away from. That's the only debate that is happening within the party. And the one woman that is on the side of the insurrection being bad is getting cast out. And Josh Hawley and the rest of the pro-insurrectionists are sticking with the party, and so I think that leaves us in a very stark and dark place. And it does, I can't lie, it does get frustrating when I see people that I once liked and respect look at all that and say, well, you know, Joe Biden is spending a little bit too much on infrastructure for my taste. I mean, I can't. That doesn't resonate with me. Well, look, I mean, you know, we just had John Boehner on this book tour. I think that the people that were in the Trump cabinet, you know, that should have been speaking out, who said they were the Mattises and the Tillersons. Frankly, I think that the retired Republican class. I mean, I just look, you know, Kasich and even the Bush family. Frankly, like why can't some of them just be for Joe Biden? If I have insurrection on one side and maybe spending a little bit too much on my taste on the other side, I just, it's frustrating to see a lot of them saying, well, I'm just going to take a pass on that one.
Claire McCaskill, I share Tim's feeling, and I think we both know all the folks that have sort of been out publicly talking about who they wrote in for election. This wasn't a choice between a Democratic candidate who might spend more than a traditional Republican and a Republican. This was a choice between a lying, corrupt, it turned into an insurrectionist, and a patriot. And I wonder, I want to read you some more. I saved this piece from this new reporting in the Washington Post by Michael Kranish for you. The piece goes on to describe, I think for the very first time, an interaction between Mitt Romney and Josh Hawley. It starts like this, quote, "You have caused this," Senator Mitt Romney erupted at Hawley, referring to the events building up to the storming of the Capitol, according to a person familiar with the exchange, who spoke anonymously. Can you imagine if Mitt Romney, flanked by all those folks Tim just named, Jim Mattis, H.R. McMaster, Dina Powell, people who have a lifetime of caring not just about our democracy, but about democracies around the world, came out and said, Josh Hawley, you caused this. So did you, Donald Trump. So did you, Ted Cruz, and really sought to draw a line around anti-democratic lies in their own party?
You know, I remember when I was running against a Republican nominee for the Senate who said something outrageous, and the Republican Party came together and said, we don't accept this. We don't accept what Todd Akin said. We don't accept what he represents. Think how far the Republican Party has fallen. that now not only do they accept people committing insurrection and sedition against our government, not only do they accept the President of the United States committing a fraud, a big lie on our democracy, which we treasure, not only are they doing that, they're continuing to sit silently as they oust a truth teller. You know, and I got to tell you the truth. If one of these Republicans has the nerve to talk about cancel culture with what they're doing to Liz Cheney, I would use such an unladylike word right now if I could. I mean, F them. You know, I mean, what about that? They want to lecture us about Dr. Seuss and the cancel culture, and they are canceling her. They are canceling Liz Cheney because she has the audacity to tell the truth. Shame on all of them.
And proving that we need a show on premium cable where we can use that word because it's so called for. But I just want to make this final point. It's not us, it's them. Here's Lindsey Graham speaking the truth and the lies out of the same two lips. Watch.
The most popular Republican in America. It's not Lindsey Graham, it's not Liz Cheney, it's Donald Trump.
I'm not going to try to get into the mind of Donald Trump because I don't think there's a whole lot of space there.
People on our side of the aisle believe that Trump policies worked. They're disappointed that he lost.
He gives voice to their anger and their frustration, but he's not fit to be president of the United States.
And to try to erase Donald Trump from the Republican Party is insane. And the people who try to erase him are going to wind up getting erased.
We think that he's unfit for office, that he would be a terrible commander-in-chief. He doesn't have the temperament or judgment.
It's impossible for this party to move forward without President Trump being its leader.
Okay. We would get slaughtered as a party if Donald Trump's our nominee, and quite frankly, we would deserve it.
Tim, without getting into, what's wrong with Lindsey Graham, again, they all know better.
Yeah, I wish that would have included the video from January 6th of this year when Lindsey Graham said we need to move forward before he was shouted down in Reagan National Airport by Donald Trump supporters. And you put me on the spot there by asking me for names in the last question. I want to add another one I was thinking about while Clara was talking about. What about the Speaker of the House who was there when all that was happening, Paul Ryan, who's now on the board at Fox? And who's making, who was at loggerheads with Donald Trump, who's making the rounds, who made his whole career about, fighting for conservative principles. And now Liz Cheney is getting kicked out of leadership in that caucus, and he's silent. He's silent. He was silent on January 6th. He's silent now. I mean, there is a critical mass of people that could have spoken out when Lindsey Graham said it was time to move forward, when Mitch McConnell did on January 6th, to have the Ryans and the Boehners and the people you mentioned in the Trump cabinet, Nikki Haley. Had they all held the line, we really could be to a place where we're fighting about whether the transportation and infrastructure bill costs too much. And wouldn't that be a good place to be? But instead, we have to be concerned about the very foundation of our democracy.
Under threat from one of the two parties. It's an unbelievable state of affairs. Tim, Jason, and Claire are all staying with us. When we